All right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna. I pray everybody is doing well. I'm going to give everybody a little bit of opportunity to come in. We're going to have some open mic, some conversation. I'm taking a break. These polynomials, these trinomials got me going, man. They got me digging in the crates on this stuff. So let's stand by. It's going to be a little bit of an open mic and a discussion. So if you have any questions or comments or anything you want to ask, you want to come up on the mic, just stay tuned, all right? We'll be right back. Yep. I decided I'm not going to stay too long today. I'm trying to see if I got enough time to go to the beach. You already know. Please and welcome back once again. This is Amuna. Yeah, so let's get into it. Let's get into it. Trying to see where I want to start, y'all. There's just so much. My head has just been trying to focus. I mean, trying to focus. But I wanted to talk briefly. Sometimes it gets tiring. I know you get tired of hearing. Sometimes I get tired of, but it just repeats itself. It's kind of like when we don't get it, like me and these trinomials. So you watch different videos, you try to get it, you try to piece it together, and when it's actually happening, now when it's your turn to break down the problem, it's your turn to move through the information, you keep getting the wrong answer, right? And so this, just retaking some math is really teaching me some really practical things that you may have it up until a point. You may know what to do at the first step and the second step, but then something happens, and then by the time you get to the third step, you misstep, right? And you get the wrong answer. So it is with relationships, because, you know, I'm just going to bring it all together really quickly. When you realize or you recognize that you are in a, for lack of a better word, a toxic relationship, that you are in a space or somebody you know. It's worse if it's somebody you know, because no matter how much you may try to express to them that what's going on, they can't see it yet, because our emotions has a way of blocking critical thinking. This is why sometimes when we fall in love, we do crazy things. Why? Because the critical thinking aspect of ourselves is kind of like thwarted or blocked because of how we're feeling, our emotions. It can be both good and bad. So some things, when you are out of love or you get back up after you fell, some people will be looking back like, yo, I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I did that. At that time, there's a possibility that you weren't in your right mind. We weren't in our right minds. If you've ever been in love, or have you ever fallen in love, you've done things that in retrospect was not a good look, right? People buy people things that, or they put people's, get in debt for people. They just do all kind of stuff, and of course it's gonna get loud right now. So if we apply that to uh, understanding sometimes that you may be getting advice from other people who are not currently in it, and their advice sounds right and exact. It's like when the teacher's, telling you how to do the problem, but then when you go try to apply it, but you didn't really comprehend it as yet, it didn't really sink in for you as yet, and you try it and it doesn't work, then you get frustrated, right? And then you oftentimes resort back to the very thing that you're doing that's causing the problem or contributing to the problem in the first place. Relationships are so very complex. There's so many moving parts. Oftentimes it's not cut and dry because you're dealing with so many different personalities. It's like cooking. Okay, which is a very scientific process, but because there's so many different elements, if you don't understand the very basis of things, that's why sometimes on the cooking show, if they get a new ingredient that they're not yet familiar with it, the first thing you'll see them do is taste it, because they want to see what part of the spectrum that particular item falls on. Is it salty? Is it sweet? Is it mushy? Is it hard? They want to know, because they're going to match that against their other knowledge, so to see whether or not how they can use it. This is why sometimes I like sitting around watching Chop and those type of cooking shows to see who's really a chef and who's playing a chef on TV, because the chefs then oftentimes know how things will operate, know how it changes when you put it under pressure, know what happens. And even with all that knowledge, especially when the judges come up, right? And the judges now have to go back into their chef space. It's easy to judge when you're sitting at the table. Oh, you should have did this. Oh, you should have did that. But with this particular show, Chop, right? When you're under pressure, when the clock is ticking, when you make bad decisions, because this is just like relationships, it all applies. You make bad decisions because the pressure is on. You make bad decisions because the clock is ticking. You make bad decisions because you're running out of time. All kind of external things. Or you just had an idea and you thought it would work, but in actuality it didn't. Right? We see that if you're in any type of space like that, in music and whatever it is that you have to create, you have those moments like you are sure this thing is going to work and then it doesn't work. In relationships, oftentimes the same thing is we have all of these different elements, all of these different components and parts of the conversation that you don't have full control over. Like you don't have full control over the person. Oftentimes people try to do it, but you don't have control over the person. You don't have control over how they react. And for oftentimes type A personalities, people who want the thing to come out like this, and it becomes frustrating, right? Especially if you're dealing with types of personalities that are more entrenched. There's no give and take in that type of personality. That's why I said narcs and empaths. Everybody's talking about narcs and empaths. I was having a conversation the other day about narcs, because now it's everywhere. I said at the end, the new N word, narc, 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 narc. But in my studies, and you can definitely contribute or correct me if I'm wrong, but as I've been studying over a lot of years, just for my own edification, right? A lot of this stuff is first for my own edification. That narcissism is oftentimes is a part of the human development that we the people pass through, right? Until you get to the other side. So when we come into this environment, and I'm not the best, share the video if you can. When we come into this environment of this world, we're in the process of taking everything in. We can't yet give because we don't yet have that which the world desires for us to give. So in that specific phase, we're taking in things. We need somebody to give us everything, give us everything, give us everything, right? And we give very little. We give back complaints, we give crying, we may coo a little. This is in the baby phase, right? As you go through toddlers, everything is mine, everything is me, everything is no, right? And as you continue to grow, it depends on how your caretaker or your parent or whomever is cultivating each part of the stage and helping you. It's like kindergarten, first grade, second grade. In our soul's emotional development, it's the same thing. Now, if in kindergarten you didn't learn to break down the words or the syllables properly, then by the time you get to third and fourth grade, you still may be struggling in that area. Okay, so this whole conversation, in my understanding, is not just identifying narcissism. It's kind of trying to understand how it develops, right? It's very important for me, so that when I'm listening and when I'm having conversation, for me, I need to be able to understand. Okay, hold on one second. India B, what's going on? And this is an open mic, by the way. So what was I saying? My mind is all over the place. That's why y'all haven't seen me going in deep lately. I'm trying to finish this math class. Yeah, so when we skip on the phases of development, or when we get stuck, or when we get oversaturated in each one of these phases, it's going to affect that soul differently. Now, depending on the soul, I'm always saying this, depending on that particular soul, it's all of these variables that's going to determine whether or not that person gets spit out as an empath, as a narc, as a codependent, whatever it is. It's not one size fits all. Why? Because you can be in the same family with the same mother and father and grow up in the same space, and one person develops with narcissistic tendencies, right? And they say everybody has narcissistic tendencies, or you can have narcissistic personality disorder, which means that you have to have a certain amount of these tendencies that are present for them to diagnose you as narcissistic, right? That's one thing. So people have tendencies, some more than others. And as we grow, and it can come, I'll give an example, just so that we can kind of put it in perspective. This is why I liked when I was talking about the Little Black Book, and I'm going to talk about them in a minute. I like the way he does his interviews, because it's giving us an understanding of how people grow and develop, and how we grow and develop with certain ideas. And if they don't get corrected along the way, they become entrenched. I talked about this other day, and this is the lens by which we see and view the world. So the narcissist is not somebody who's just starved of attention. This could have been somebody who was a firstborn, or who got all of this adoration, all of this attention, all of this praise. Since, everything you do is so perfect, and look at my little Susie, or look at little Jane, look at Johnny, right? And Johnny is just used to this. Oh, bathe me in all of this adoration and attention, right? And you teach that soul that they need an abundance of adoration and affirmation and attention in order for them to feel valid, in order for them to feel present. That child could develop with these narcissistic tendencies that are being cultivated through his environment or her environment, and go on to expect each phase in each person, what's going on, truthful perspective, each phase in each person to do all of these things for them. And so they go out into the world and they're very entitled. Okay, you owe me. Okay, this is the person who shows up. They show up late. They don't care. Everybody owes them. Their presence is a gift to you. And they don't see how and why and what happens when they hurt people, and they really don't care. That's one way of developing a narcissist. But you have other ways of developing a narcissist. You could have been exposed to a narcissist. Your parent, mother, or your father, your grandparent, whoever raised you, that guardian could have been a narcissist. Okay. And so now you're copying and mimicking that behavior, because now to you, that behavior has become normalized. So in one space, the narcissist could have been developed because it was fostered. In another space, this person could be imitating or emulating what they saw in and around them, and they became a narcissist. Or you can have, my point is to show you the different ways that narcissism can develop and why that's important. You can also have, shalom to everybody who just came, you can also have somebody who didn't get attention, right? Or they didn't get the adoration, they didn't get all of those things, but inside they feel like they're owed those things. So they can be coming to this space of narcissism from a lack. You can come from an abundance, you can come from a lack, You can just come from overall exposure to narcissism. Okay. So is the same with empaths. If you or somebody you know, and why this is important, because I'm going to bring it all the way up to yeah, shout out to prayers for everybody in this space and time. It's crazy out in these streets. We're gonna talk about this too. It's open mic. It's crazy right now in these streets. So you can come to narcissism and empath, what everybody's calling this overexposure, this need to tune in with everyone's emotions, this need to walk on eggshells, because there's a possibility that you were exposed to a narcissist, somebody who sucks the air out of the room, the vacuum of a parent or a sibling, because you could have been exposed to a narcissistic sibling, right? So say your sibling was the one who got all the attention and all the adoration, and you became like this empath, always in tune so that you don't upset the sibling or you don't upset the parent. My point is, just like a recipe, there are all these different factors that go into whether or not it turns out the way it turns out. Why is this important? As we go on to adulthood, like I spoke about the other day, we can get caught in this trap and this loop of not understanding, why am I so, why am I thus, why am I having this experience? Because we're not connecting the two together. Our prior exposure and what we're experiencing now, or the choices that we're making now, or the reasons why we're doing or not doing whatever X, Y, and Z. Okay. So hopefully the conversation with this narcissism business and calling everybody a narc, hopefully it gets another layer or another few layers so that we can understand that people have narcissistic tendencies. It does not make them a narcissist. You people have empathic tendencies. It doesn't make them a whole empath, right? And in this day and time, I see YouTube like dividing into like all the narcissism videos and then all the empath videos, and then all the empaths are in the, what's going on, Queen T? All the empaths in the comment section, like crying a river, you know what I mean? And it's like, now it gets to be like a stripe. Now it gets to be this type of badge of honor, and really it's showing up in our experience, it's showing up in our world so that we can do something, so that we can rectify it, so that we can address it, so that we can heal it. Okay. But some people don't want healing. Sometimes you get more attention by embracing the badge, or embracing the behavior, embracing the title. You get more identity, you find your tribe. And if you deal with that, and if you heal that, and if you allow it to move through and you move beyond, now you have to find a new tribe. And on the other side of that, there's not too many people that I have met in this walk that push through that point to get to that other side. There's a lot of people who are blind and not knowing what's going on with themselves. And then there are other people who came to understand, okay, this is what's going on. But then the work, the effort, the time, the energy to unblock the blockage, it becomes too much. And so then the people settle in, well, I'm an empath. Well, what are you? Yeah, and I attracted this narc, and then I found another narc, and I don't know why I keep finding all these narcs. I put the link in the box, by the way, everybody, because it's a little open mind. What you mean you don't know why you keep finding all these narcs? Because you're sending out narc radar. You're sending out narc signals. Wait a minute, I can't. You're sending out narc signals, and then you're wondering why you can't find. Oh, I was wondering where every one of these things is different. Here's the chat. You're wondering why you can't get beyond it, and that's why. Now, that's what I wanted to say about that. Those are not the only issues. People can really have other psychological issues like schizophrenia, like post-traumatic, like borderline. You know, they can be codependent. They can be, manic depressive. There's a whole lot of other things that can be going on with people. And it's not just narcissism. The injustice that's happening is because, we see some weird behavior. It's narcissism. It may not be narcissism. So yes, it's good that we have access to all of this information, but for the sake of not setting us up to fail because we think we already have the answer when that may not be it. Like, for instance, there was a woman, and do a little story time. And this woman's behavior was weird. Like, I'm a people watcher. I've always been a people watcher. So now you see me share. Sometimes if the environment is new, you might just see me in the back, just watching, seeing people's movements, everything. That's just been me. There's times I talk, there's times I don't talk. Right. And so there was this woman whose behavior was really weird. Okay. And I watch people's everything. I don't know. It's just what I do. And I'm like, hmm. And everybody tried to convince me, like, the woman was okay. The woman is cool. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There's something, something not adding up. You know, my trinomials are not factoring, right? There's something that's not adding up with this conversation. So anyway, time and time go on. Now, it was advantageous for the people to convince me that the woman was solid. But I was of the persuasion that the woman is not solid and time will reveal all things. Okay. And so time goes on. The very same person. So I'm just going to distance myself. I'm not going to try to tell nobody else what they should do. But I know that I'm going to put healthy boundaries around this conversation because I don't like the progress. Shout out to Queen T. Yep. Check out the Yummy Cottage, y'all. I'm going to show y'all my new my new little sign on the door that I just. Sarai, what's going on? What's going on, Sarai? So I was like, yo, I'm just gonna put some boundaries around this sister. You know what I mean? I'm not the type that's like, hey, have you seen such and such? And try to malign the person. It's just like, I don't rock with the person. If you ask me, I might have a conversation with you, but what's the need to have the whole campaign? You feel me? And so time and time go on and time go on. Same people come back around. You know, well, I did explain to the person my objection, right? But they didn't want to hear me, so I let it be. Years pass. You know, I think something's wrong with the person. Yeah. Yeah, because, and I'm like, aha. So when you were digging the deep, wide ditch that you wanted me to jump in, and this happened to me more than one time, now that I'm thinking about it, when you wanted me to jump in because it was advantageous to you, or it was beneficial to you, or it was something that fit your agenda, I was supposed to go beyond what I was observing and not be acknowledged for what I'm saying because the person has another alternative outcome that they want to see. I was supposed to go along with that. And because I didn't, then I was the bad guy. But then years come around and then you see it. And now you're trying to convince me of what I already told you years before. What's the moral of that story? Sometimes we go to people seeking advice, or we go to people trying to express something, but we don't know. Or maybe we're that person is already implicitly biased towards whatever it is that we're trying to shed light and truth on. And because that person is already biased, the response that we're going to get is going to be like, what? You know what I mean? Like, what in the world? I'm confused. But if we step back from the picture emotionally, like I said, put the emotions to the side and critically think, it could be your best friend. It could be your sister, your brother, your mother, whomever, who you think that this person is going to give me a fair shake. You may not know that this person already has another filter by which they're hearing what you're saying. And in some situations, our conscience won't let us rightly judge the situation because then we would inadvertently be judging ourselves. We see this in the conscious community right now. All of the scuffle, all of the hubbub is about people not feeling empowered to judge a situation because they may also be guilty of the very situation that they're judging. So this makes for issues in communication. It makes for issues in relationships. Why? Because we're not considering that part. We're just looking at, you're my friend, or you're my such and such, or you're my mother, you're my father, you're my teacher. I thought I would get a fair shake with you. And then relationships fall apart. Right? Relationships fall apart. Why? Because there's all kind of other hidden things that don't come to the surface until later on. And because oftentimes we get emotionally involved in the conversation, we can't see it until later. And reflection is an important part. I put the link in the box. This is an open mic, y'all. Reflection is an important part of that process, right? Yeah, so be careful. If you have a gut feeling or intuition and you work a lot on your filter and making sure that you're not going to be 100% unbiased, because, you know, we people. But if you work on yourself and somebody's trying to convince you that somebody's is a go when in your spirit there's a no-go, you might want to move with your spirit. Or if you think everybody that's that is good is a no-go, it may be that you're the one that needs to change, right? Because you may have been exposed to haters. For instance, I give an example. This is the culture of hater. Everybody's a hater. Everybody's against me. If you come from a space where you're exposed to negativity, scoffers, haters, your filter in your space, it may be very well true that family and friends don't support you or are against you. So you are accustomed to that type of person. I may be accustomed to that type of person, right? So when you go out into the world and you have people who truly want to support, you might be like, "Yeah, that person might try to set me up. What's going on with them?" Right? If you see somebody really wanting, because you haven't been exposed to that, you may think that something is wrong with that, at which point your filter is broken or my filter may be broken. So it is with man and woman relationship. If you're used to women dogging you out and here comes a woman who treats you well, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're waiting for them to come at you. You're waiting for them to do what the other people have done. So it is with the woman. So when the man comes and treats you right, you dog him out. Why? Because you expected him to dog you out. And then you say, oh, so that you can prove your hypothesis true. All men are XYZ or all women are fill in the blanks. Also, another thing, this is that I've been experienced is watching people struggle with their choices. I'm watching it now and projecting their shortcomings or their experience onto me personally. And I'm over here because I've done a lot of work. I'm just like, that's cute. Like what? Projecting. So you're having an experience. We see this in the land of YouTube and social media. The person may be having an experience with the man or woman, because this is a hot topic, man and woman relationship, right? And now all of a sudden, all women are bees, all men are dogs. And you're like, wait a minute. And then they're arguing with a person and they're putting all of that energy, all of that vitriol that they have for the person, they're like hurling it, projectile vomiting it on you. And you're like, you need a moment. You know what I mean? Because the transference is real. You know what I mean? I'm gonna need you to take that back over there, because this is not the conversation here. Why are we bringing that all up into my Zen space? I'm not understanding. I do understand, but the person is not conscious or cognizant that they are transferring wholesale their indifference and resentment and hatred on this side. And because you resemble, we see this with racial issues, because you may have melanated skin, or because you may have, or because you're a European, or because you're a woman, or because you're a man, all of a sudden, because you fit the profile. We don't like racial profiling, but we do it to one another. Because you fit the profile, that person is going to bring everything that they had for the others and they're going to put it on you. That's wrong. I'm here to tell you all, it's wrong. Oh, it's wrong. Hey, it's wrong. Right? So I talked about, now this is just some stuff that's been on my mind. Okay. Let me know what's on your mind. That's just some stuff that's been on my mind. And I used to be triggered. And now I feel just like a homeostasisness of, I just made that homeostasisness about it. I just like, yeah. And at that point where you're trying to express to the person, well, the person you're dealing with is a narc. They don't hear you. Or if they hear you, it doesn't translate into something to help them to understand. The person you're dealing with doesn't care, right? And it's like, what? Or they are looking to provoke you to get a reaction. Sometimes when you begin to find your strength and your power, right? And you're like, I'm tired of this merry-go-round. Medea, Sarai, Medea. You're tired of being on the merry-go-round, right? And you start to get your bearings. The person may try to banana in your tailpipe. They may try to trip you up because they enjoy, especially if they have narcissistic tendencies or if they're full-blown narc. They enjoy you going round and round in this mulberry bush. Okay? They like the new word of the day, gaslighting you. Okay? They like doing these things because it shows that they have the power to evoke emotions in you. If somebody else has the power to can evoke emotions in you, I keep saying emotions, then they to a certain degree have power over you. If I can make you angry or make you upset or make you whatever it is, then at that moment, not maybe not across the board blanket, but at that moment, I have power. And if you're in a relationship where the power dynamic is always at this tug of war, then the people are going to poke to see where it is that they can get you. I'm here to say that's unhealthy. Like the hashtag petty side. Like I do have a petty side. It was bigger when I was younger. But you know, it's like, for what? You know what I mean? It may feel good like eating the chocolate bonbon, and then after a while it's just like, you know, for what? Right? So the pettiness that we resort to does not work for building positive relationships. And what do we have if we do not have healthy, positive relationships? I'm watching these two brothers on argue and squabble and go back and forth real time over what's going on with polite and conscious community and who's to fault and who's at blame and who was there and who wasn't there. And real time, you can watch how people have a common goal, because the enemy of your enemy is your friend. That's what some say, right? So people have a common goal. Now they want to talk about this person, but they have other kind of issues that they already have. And so when the slightest thing comes up, it's no longer about the enemy. Now it's about trying to tear down that person. And as I'm watching it real time, I'm like, we suffer in this area because the moment we feel some type of, that kind of hit me, we see that as a license to come at somebody, as a license to drag, like in the case of Tasha K with the lead attorney guy. The moment she felt away, indifferent about what he said, she took that as license to wholly disrespect the person. How do you maintain relationships if the moment you feel a certain kind of way, instead of using our words to express whatever we're feeling, we take it as permission to go at somebody? The relationship is finito. Narcs can be like an energy jacker, parasitic demon getting a high off emotions and stress. Actually, they do, yeah. Yeah, they do. They oftentimes depend on kind of narc you're dealing with, because you have covert narcs, you have different type of narcs, right? But yes, back to the narcissist for a second. The narcissist derives their energy from their interactions with other people, right? So we're supposed to be connected to source, be connected to creator. The creator is the one who empowers us. And through our interactions with one another, we transfer this energy. To some degree, in the development of the narcissist, and I could be corrected, there is a disconnect in where they get their source energy from. And they have learned that the way they get their source, so for instance, the extroverted one, they have to be in the presence of people. They have to be the center of attention. They have to be up and grandiose and all about, because that's where they get their energy, right? They get it from other people. So basically, it's like, I got a phone, you got a phone, and you're trying to get your phone to be charged from my phone, as opposed to plugging your phone in the charger. Right? So it's all about energy, like Truthful Perspective said. It's all about energy, how we get our energy, and what we do with that energy once we get it. So sometimes when you go around somebody who is a narcissist, it's really just going to be all about me, all about what I want to do, not really about what you're going to do. I'm going to be impatient when you're talking about you. I want you to listen attentively when you're talking about me, right? Because there is a over need of energy to be flowing towards the narcissist for whatever created that issue. Listening should be, you can talk, I talk, I'm hearing what you're saying, You reaffirm the person, you know, I hear what you're saying, and you are trying to have this exchange instead of a constant pulling, right? And not really giving back unless it's connected with really long strings. And so it drains the person because, and they usually look for people who are givers. This is why the empath ends up with the narcissist, or the narcissist ends up with the narcissist. But when the empath ends up with the narcissist, it's a stable supply of energy. Okay. And so it's really deep. If that's not your situation, then, and you are still struggling, then you need to put the narcissist title aside, and maybe the person you're dealing with, or maybe you are experiencing something else, because we're talking about mental health in the community, right? There's many people that have a lot of mental health issues, and it doesn't all boil down to narcissism. If you don't take nothing else from this conversation, all mental health issues do not boil down to narcissism. It could be chemical imbalance. It could be a whole lot of other stuff. It could be trauma that they experience in their life. It doesn't all boil down to narcissism. What was I going to say? Right. But so back to the communication. I grew up in a family that it's a very weird communication style. At first, I attributed it to being Jamaican, and it rubbed me the wrong way because I'm like, this is just weird communication. You see some of the comedians, they mimic it good, and you know that they're not blowing it out of proportion. There's one comedian that talks about not being able to hijack a Jamaica, right? Because Jamaicans are always angry, and so no, that's a huge stereotype. Jamaicans are not always angry, but I came from a set of Jamaicans that are the stereotypical type of Jamaican. Right? So the communication style that I learned is weird to me. Even when I was learning, I was like, well, this is. But then you started thinking, well, this is how I communicate. If the person is talking, you don't agree, you just get a little louder, right? And if you don't agree, you start posturing. You know what I'm saying? And if they don't agree, you start talking and moving towards them. And then people who didn't grow up or exposed to that are like, what in the world is wrong with you? And then you say things like, I come from New York, I talk with my hands. But to other people, it'd be like, okay, you're threatening me, you're in my space, you know, whatever it may be. So you have to look at your own space, your own pool, and look at what's in the water. And I mean, how was communication open? Was it do as I say? Was it don't ask me no questions? Was it too many questions? When you look at that, then you will understand the type of people you attract and the way in which you communicate. Now, some relationships don't work because your store is not open, right? Your store is not open. This is not how do you transmit information one to another when I don't take card and you don't take cash. You understand what I'm saying? When you go to a store in this day and age, when I go out to sell, one of the first things they ask is, do you take card? Because they want to know if the currency they have, do I accept it? Do you still take cash? They want to know what they have because they know what they have. So usually the question that they ask me is based on what they already have. So when I say, yeah, I take card, then they feel more comfortable to proceed to say, okay, I want this, this, and this. So it is because communication is commerce, right? So it is when we're communicating, but we don't have those type of questions like, do you take card? You know what I mean? Do you take cash? We just start talking and assume the person is this, that, and the third because they're not responding because we didn't check and verify. It's like when somebody comes from another country, you ask, well, do you understand English? Or if you go to their country, you say, well, do you speak Spanish? Why? Because whatever I'm about to transmit to you, I want to make sure that you receive it and that you can respond to me in a way that is right and exact. But when we're having conversations, because sometimes we're in our own little world and we don't look at these interactions as commerce, right? And an exchange, we're having these roadblocks. The store is not open. You know, the store discriminates. We don't talk to these type of people. You may have a man that has woman issues, right? I've seen some men who have women issues. How many people have seen men who have women issues? I've seen men who have women issues. I grew up around a lot of men, and I had a lot of brethren, as they say, You know what I'm saying? As I grew up in school. So I would hang around more of the boys than I did women or girls when I was growing up. So I would have a lot of conversations with males. Okay. I would ask them all kind of stuff, you know, all kind of stuff. I was psychoanalyzing them since I was 13. So tell me something. Okay. So you may have a male who has a female issue. Usually the female issue is going to come from childhood. I'm just keeping it gully. They may have a totally different way in which they speak and communicate to men and be more open if their need is from the man to affirm them or the male to acknowledge them. And when they come to the woman, there's a wall up, there's an indifference, there's a hardness, and you're like, wait a minute. What in the world? Right? That's showing you that person, that's like you go into a store and they say, we don't accept people with green shirts. You can't shop here. It's the same kind of thing. Like, you don't got the jab, you can't shop here. It's the same kind of thing. You understand? You're going to that store or that business to do business, and they're telling you, based on this, I cannot interface with you. You may have dealing with a man or a woman who may have a problem with the opposite sex. And based on that bias, they don't want to interact with you. And when they do interact with you, it's going to be choppy. I put the link in the box, you guys. And when they do interact with you, it's going to be choppy. What time is it? 7 o'clock, right? And so we get frustrated because we may think it's us personally. And the reality is it may not be us personally. We learned that from the Jim Crow era. It wasn't you personally. It was what you represented. If you had melanin, then as a whole, you were rejected. Not because your name was Ann or your name was Justin. It's simply because of the color of your skin. So some people, it's simply because of your gender, simply because of your nationality, simply because of whatever. They don't know you. So when we internalize it, we think it's us, and then that eats away at our self-esteem. So if you grow up in a space where you internalize somebody's rejection of children, they may not like children, period. Here you come as a child. It's not you, the child. It's the fact that, or the soul, it's the fact that you are a child. That person may dislike you. And here's a little tip. Oftentimes they say narcissists don't like children. This is why I say they are stuck in a phase of development that the child was. Narcissists as a whole don't like children because oftentimes narcissists rival children. They're jealous of children because children are getting what the narcissist wants. But oftentimes it is said by society they have passed that space where they could be accepting those things or expecting those things. Is it making sense to you guys? I'm just going a little bit deeper into this conversation because I see some people in and around me struggling with it. And when you try to talk, sometimes one-on-one, I know people who know me in real life, and I'm talking to them in real life, in the flesh and blood, like how I prefer to speak to people. And it's like, la. But then they be like, yeah, so I saw you on the YouTube. I'm like, what? What? So they would rather watch me here instead of having a real life conversation. I don't know what that is. Yo, where y'all going with Nigel? Nigel, what going? I'm here just chopping it up, Nigel. The mic is open. Just sharing some thoughts on my mind, freeing up my mind a little bit. You know what I mean? So that's the conversation on that. What else I want to say? Okay, so when you finally decide, this has happened to me. A lot of stuff has happened to me. I just don't be like, yo, this is my story, YouTube. A lot of stuff, right? So somebody nigh on to me, let me get the biblical language, who also suffers with lack of the ability to communicate, thought it was a good idea to misconstrue an occurrence and then address it in that, like I told you, the old school type of way. And now that I've learned to be a bit more refined and no longer decide, because I mean, let me tell you guys, let me tell you guys something. Amuna could turn up. I know it don't look like it. I know it don't look like it. But Amuna could turn up. These are my confessions. You know what I'm saying? I can turn up. Over the years, first of all, it makes my heart rate go up. You know what I mean? And my voice get hard. Y'all notice I got a little bit of a deeper voice. To turn up, it just takes too much energy from me, right? So of lately, you would really have to be doing some wild, crazy stuff for me to turn up. You understand? Because I don't like turning up. And so when the person decided to turn up, and I'm just like, nah, I'm not turning up, bro. What I'm gonna do is disengage. Because if the shop is not open for this conversation to move beyond what you think was going on, then I have to give you space. And so that's the maturity. It could be loved ones, it can be whomever. Sometimes, like I said, we may be in a space in life where we're demanifesting people that resonated with us when that was who we are or who we were. And when you begin to continue to grow beyond who you were, and they don't grow too, what's going to happen is they're going to demanifest. Right? They're going to demanifest. And some people will be like, well, that's your such and such, and that's your such and such. I had to say to somebody I know, if you cannot accept the person, if you have to keep telling me about who I was 20 years ago, and you cannot acknowledge the person who's before you, then there's not much we can say. There's not much more we can do, because I'm not going to revert back to that space or have to fit into that box to connect. So we come to the crossroads where we have to make choices. Dr. Babylon Culture. Yeah. And speaking of coming to the crossroads and Babylon, of where we have to make choices is where we are now. There's a lot of choices that people didn't want to make that they're now being forced to make. There was a time when homeschooling was frowned upon. We're taking the driver's seat for your child's education and making sure that they get what they need and that you play more of an active role. You were weird. And in the switch of a hand, everything turned around. So if you know something that's right to do, even when the mass majority may be taking the easy way out, or they may be trying to chide you or discourage you because it's something that they don't want to do, if you know it is right and exact to do, just keep doing it. People ask me all the time over the last year and a half, how are you adjusting? I said, I'm doing what I've been doing. But when I was doing it before, you were an anomaly. You were weird. You were out there. But now that they are forced to do it, now it's, oh, tell me what you were doing. How are you doing it? My point is, the crowd is not always going to be present because you're present. But don't let that not be the reason that you're not present. Now, the jab. I have to talk a little bit about the jab. The pressure is hot right now for a lot of people who have to wake up suddenly, right? There's some people who been awake, so it's like you've been preparing for this time, and there's some people who just thrown in the deep end and have to wake up suddenly, and they're shocked and they don't know what to do. There's the petty side would be like, well, I told you and I've been trying to tell you and I don't know what you was doing. Or it's like, since this is what you wanted, those who have been awake are going to kind of need to extend yourself to a certain degree to help support those who have to get red pilled really, really quickly. I think that's what I would say on the subject. There's people who have chided, scoffed, scorned. And I'm just like, okay. You understand? Sadly, there's a lot of people who are getting injured, whose voice is getting silenced, so that you can't hear the other side of the argument. People need to make their choices, but make them critically, and think critically, because whatever choices you do make, you're going to have to hold that bag, no matter who told you to do it. Okay? No matter who told you to do it, you're going to have to hold that bag. You can turn around and blame them, but you still gonna have to hold the bag. And what people are trying to do is trying to short circuit your ability to make that choice based on the fact that you're gonna have to hold the bag and boop, boop, and do the same thing that we was taught growing up. Don't succumb to peer pressure. Don't let people lead you astray. And now here's all the peer pressure and here's all the everything, and people are kind of crumbling, right? So I would say to that, do your research. There's going to be, are you going to eat? Are you going to live? Is this legal? Is it lawful? Can they really do this? Do your research. So yeah, there's a lot going on in the this community, in the that community, but keep your eye on the ball right now, because it's getting crazy out in these streets. That's my thoughts on that. Because you know them in this whole, even have it so till that you cannot openly talk about something. India say my own family is giving me the blues about the jab. Yeah, because the peer pressure, that's how it's designed. It's designed to peer pressure people into something. It's designed to peer pressure people into something. But I thank God most I rest my grandmother. One thing she would always say when we were young, and it stuck with me. I told you about that imprint. Don't follow friend and company. They will lead you astray. She, every time I saw her, that's her number one thing. That's all she kept saying. So I was like, all right, I'll put that in my bag. You know what I mean? I'll put that in my pipe and smoke it. I don't smoke, but you get the point, right? The peer pressure is going to come from the ones you know, the ones you say you love, the ones that say they love you. But they may be afraid. There's a lot of people in this space and time that are afraid and not being honest. They don't want to do the work. They can't withstand whatever the pressure or the pushback is going to be. So they're going to take the easy way out. I'm telling you, on this conversation, there is no easy way out. I'll give y'all a story and then I'm a wrap up. I noticed a couple of years ago, over a decade, that there was an increase of C-sections, right? And I was doing my research at that time. And I'm like, why are they pushing everything towards C-sections? Everything towards C-sections. So the natural course was being diminished, and C-sections were the new schedule when you're going to give birth. And I just thought that was weird. Okay? I thought it was weird. So when I got pregnant with my first child, my daughter, at first I was going to the conventional hospital. Right? And I'm like, I'm not feeling this hospital. Even though it was the hospital I was born in. You know what I mean? But that was many moons ago. So I sought out, I know a sister who gave birth at a birthing center. So I sought out the birthing center. Midway, I was 6 months, big belly. And I'm like, yo, I'm out. You know what I mean? And I go to the birthing center. And now I feel a bit comfortable about doing things natural, X, Y, Z, Z. This was in New York. So I did that one first. They're not pushing you for medication. They're not pushing you to give your children jabs. And I was like, yo, how nature intended it. So when the twins came along, it was high, it was kind of high risk because, low, all of this, whatever. So I had a doctor who was like, no, I had a midwife who was afraid to kind of give birth, to deliver the twins. So we had a doctor on standby. I still remember her name. I should talk about it, but I'm gonna leave her. I'm gonna call her Dr. Fly, okay? So Dr. Fly was all like trying to push her medical white coat authority on me. Like I told you, I can turn up. I just choose not to. I reserve my turn up, okay? So I had a few words with the doctor, which I did not mince. And she didn't like me too well. Let's just say that. And what they really wanted to do was try to get me to C-section. And I was like, no, okay, we're not doing that. Okay. So anyway, babies come early. I'm in the emergency room. And this woman, while I'm flat out, I'm telling you how the medical establishment can, I'm not saying all, but they can pressure you. Okay. And if you don't have your wits about you, if you don't have your center, your core, you will succumb. I'm laid out, big belly pregnant with twins on this tight little gurney. Anyway, if anybody works in the medical establishment, why is that joint so small? Anyway, I'm on this tight little gurney, okay? big belly in labor at 32 weeks. So I'm early. No, I'm not 32 weeks. Yeah, I'm 30, almost 33 weeks. And the doctor's back there with her goggles. She all gloved up because she thinks she about to get the C-section that she tried to put upon the kid. So the anesthesiologist, he pops out of nowhere, don't know where he came from. And this is a true story, y'all. And he's over me beasting. This is the medical establishment. Sign this paper. And I'm laid out on my back in labor, okay? And I'm like arguing with them on my back. Like, I'm not signing this paper, man. Come on. Sign the paper. Da, 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 da. I said, what do you want me to sign the paper for? Oh, because we gonna cut you. I was like, nah, I'm not signing the paper because the baby is coming. And she was like, nah, they checked, the baby's not coming. I was like, the baby is coming. I push, boop, out pops my son. No, true story. Would you believe the anesthesiologist, he pops back in the picture again. He's over my head, waving this paper in my hand with a pen for me to, my husband is not in the room because it's emergency. I'm in there by myself. I'm laid out and the pressure is on. They're not allowing any course of nature to do what needs to be done. It wasn't like emergency. I wasn't hemorrhaging. The children are coming. Anyway, he tries again. I deny. Now she's in the back. She's pissed. She's livid. She's like, what do you think you are, Superwoman? Da 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 da. Cause you should take the medication. You should take whatever it is that they're giving you because they're God. They have a God complex. Now, rewind the story a little bit. Earlier on in our consultation, I had told her that she wasn't my God. Right? So Dr. Fly didn't like that too much. Why the young ones open the door giving me dirty look? I told y'all to get ready. Y'all didn't, so now y'all gotta wait. You ready? All right, then now you giving me dirty looks when I told you let's go. Anyway, long story short, they trying to cut my story time. How y'all enjoying the story, by the way? Long story short, the pressure was on. I'm by myself in a compromising situation. And I just stuck to my guns, and the creator was with me. I delivered my daughter, the one who just gave me the dirty look just now. I left what's going on. I said the baby's coming again because it was twins. I delivered my daughter. The doctor was livid. She was in the back. She snatched off her goggles, and she was like, nothing to see here. I remember all of this because I was totally cognizant, right? I was aware. I wasn't under no medication or nothing. And she was like, nothing to see here. I guess we can't put this as a tax write-off. Because it was the first of the year. They were the first babies of that year in that hospital. And that's how disconnected, that's how, for me, that was my experience, how disconnected from the people who you say you're here to help, the lives who you say you're here to touch, they become these objects. We the people become these objects, okay, that you can move around at will, that you can practice on. I always say it. You go to a hospital, they have their place. Modern medicine has its place. My point is, you have to be buyer beware, okay? So when you go to this hospital, you are the patient. And they have a practice. So you should be patient when they practice on you. So maybe they might be right and maybe they might be wrong. You understand? In this particular situation, I already looked down and understood that if it's not emergency, which is what they used to use cesareans for, now they're using it for cosmetics. Now they're compromising the woman, her gastrointestinal system. There's people I know with cesareans who they take out your organs. Understand, they have to take out your organs, lay it on the side so that they can get to your womb to extract the child. The next hustle with the cesareans is that once they do that, then when you want to deliver naturally or have a VBAC, they come and tell you, a vaginal birth after cesarean, they come and tell you, oh, you're high risk. So now that you have one cesarean, you have two cesareans, you have three cesareans, some so that the child does not go through the birth canal, they would rather open your stomach and remove your organs and deliver a child who is not in any danger. I'm not talking about the ones who may be in danger. I'm talking about the ones who are not in any danger 2 and 3 and 4 times. And then tell you you're at risk for X, Y, and Z. So this is why I'm saying buyer beware, because there's some things that they have been. This is not the new thing. The jab is just the new thing. There are many things that has been going on, like for sterilization or extracting hysterectomies, partial hysterectomies, full hysterectomies. I've talked about this before on women who are 30 and 40 years old, as young as 20 years old, wanting to give you full hysterectomies. I had somebody who I know, my age, come to me talking about, oh, I have some type of, what do they call it? It escapes me right now. The name escapes me, right? Some type of issue, menstruation issue. And the solution is to remove your uterus. Something else is going on here. That's all I have to say on that. Something else are going on here. Thank you, India. That is also what I wanted to say. Babies coming through the birth canal is spiritual. I actually wanted to touch on that, and I'm glad you brought that up. They're messing with the plans of the Most High because they're short-circuiting that coming through that matrix. It's definitely a spiritual thing, and this is why we're looking and saying, well, the children are different right now. The energy is different. When you look at a combination of things, you have to understand in the spiritual realm, certain things are being short-circuited. That birth canal, that passageway, I do ultimately believe there's something spiritual that transpires when you move through that into and be birthed into this realm. And when you don't go that way, what way do you go? You actually have to come from the, I'm just in the mood today. Those trinomials got my head like, I need to like, oh, okay, I need to relax. I feel talkative today. I've been focusing too hard. Okay, so let's do the spirituality. And yes, Queen T is for money, because you get way more money for, because it's surgery. That's why the anesthesiologist was over me beasting. It's surgery. A natural birth is not surgery, but a cesarean is surgery, and you get more money for cesareans than you do for natural births, okay? So needless to say, my last child, I called back in the midwife, understand? But let's look at the birthing process. The male and the female come together, regardless of what some people may say. And that's how it works, okay? Now, this soul is looking for an outfit. Like, yo, I'm about to go down to earth, son. You know what I mean? I heard, you know what I mean? However you think it goes, there's many people who wondering how it go. I like to imagine that the soul is like, yo, son, it's about to be my time. I heard, you know what I mean? I heard I'm about to go to earth, about to get this fit. Okay. Comes together, and this body starts being knit together for this soul to embody. Okay. And there's this passage way that now you go from what was spiritual, because the soul enters the womb and enters the body, right? So now this soul is now birthed into this physical, gets a birth suit that's going to be able to survive in this dimension. And there's this doorway that you need to go through to get here. You're big, you're small, you expand, and then you have to contract. You know how much stuff have to go? You know how many bones in the woman's body has to dislodge in order to make a space big enough for this soul to come through? It's crazy. Let me just tell you, for somebody who has done it a number of times, it's crazy. Okay. So this soul comes through this birth canal, this passageway, and comes into the earth. And they're like, something has to happen there. I may study it at another time, but something is happening during, I agree with India. And they're like, no, the only time they used to do, because I looked up cesareans, the only time they used to do cesareans is when the mother died in childbirth and the baby was still alive, and they would do a cesarean to get the live baby from the mother who had died during childbirth. That was the the basis for doing cesareans, and they used to do it straight down the belly. That was crazy. They used to take a straight up and down cut down the belly and take out the babies. Now they've got the bikini cut and all this other stuff, but that doesn't put apart. Wait a minute, hold on. See, y'all should have came when I told y'all to. Now I'm having a moment. Queen T says hysterectomy, but late 40s, and I tried all options. Yeah, there's many people. There's many people who ended up getting hysterectomies. But the question I would ask to Queen T is, what is going on that this many hysterectomies or this many womb issues arise within not only just this melanated Black people population, but hysterectomies are happening in many spaces. What is going on in our culture that so many women are developing womb issues? Remember, we're just talking about the passage of children into this world and the womb, and that so many women are having all the cystic fibroids, this, that, all of these womb issues are occurring, that the end result has to be taking the whole womb out. I think that's deep. That's what I think. I think it's deep. My son said that the world was black and white, and when he came, he brought color. I believe he remembers coming through. Cause when you in there, when you swimming around, I asked my cause they're twins, so I asked when they first came out, when they were younger, I used to talk to them about if they remember anything. And so my daughter used to say, my son came out first, so she used to say, I kicked him out, and then I swam around for a little bit before I came out. Because she said he was scrunching him up, but really she was the one who was sprawled out all the time on the sonogram, and he was kind of scrunched up. So they was getting, like, my belly was huge, so they was getting too big, and they was like, yo, forget it, we just gonna come early and do what it do. You know what I mean? The removal of umbilical cord, some keep attached until it falls off. Right. Also that the premature cutting of the umbilical cord. Right now, people are bringing back lotus birth and all of this stuff like this. What are those effects? They're affecting us in some way. Just boom, cutting the umbilical cord before it stops beating. They're in there doing all. And if you go into certain hospitals and have a birthing plan, sometimes they just ain't nobody trying to see that. They don't even respect. Hey, I have a birthing plan and this is what I want. All of that goes out the window, and now this person, once you commit yourself under the care, if you try to leave, then you leave without, what do they call it? AMA? What do they call it? Like you're leaving without their permission. So once you say, hey, this is what it is that I've come here for, they have to discharge you, and if not, you're against medical advice or something to that degree. There's a lot of stuff going on. I know I went all over the place. I said it was open mic, but you had a fibroid. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Endometriosis and a cyst, and could barely function every month. It got worse and worse. Wow, Queen T. Wow. And that's the case for many. Like I said, I know quite a few people where that's the case for many of us. And we have to say, well, what's going on in this space? There's the connection between the birth control pills, the hormones, the food, all of these things that we the people are consuming, they find their way into our system, and they manifest for a lot of women with menstrual problems. Right? I mean, some people have debilitating menstrual problems. And so you'd be like, oh, so the woman is this, the woman is that. Do you know that woman may be on some, like, her whole belly bottom is dropping out. Her whole stomach is on the floor, and she may just not be pleasant to be around. Back to the communication, there's all these things to be considered as we're having internal struggle, internal angst, all these things that's happening inside of us, as well as all the things that's happening outside of us. And oftentimes when we're around people who we're closest to, the nastiest of those things come out. We project those things to the people who are closest to us and reserve the nice, fake nice smile for people who don't know us. It's not good, because then you erode and deteriorate the relationships that you really need, right? I'm gonna wrap up. What time is it? 109. What I was not as versed. Oh no, I read that part. So that was my story time, y'all. I don't bust out story time often, but I got a lot of story. I'm not, everybody is not about, you know, at different space. I think information is empowering. I think the more that we, and not just looking for biased information, because modern medicine has its place. So let's not get it twisted. Modern medicine has its place, but information is power. I'll give one more quick story and then I'm gonna go. Because of the way I like to research, I knew a sister who kept having issues with going in and out of the hospital. They couldn't find what was wrong. She had burning heart. She had this, that. So she ended up in the hospital, and she called me. She said the doctors are gonna put me on, I forgot whatever the medication was, this many years ago. And I'm like, whoa, because some medications that they put you on makes things worse. Some of them are trial. Some of them make it. I'm coming. Everybody get ready in 2 more seconds. No, 2 more minutes. So everything gets worse, right? So I looked up the medication as she was telling me, and I was like, whoa. And then they were telling her, yo, we're going to put a stent in your heart. You know, we're going to do this, that. And I was like, wait a minute. So I'm looking up, you know, just because when you're in, like I said, in that compromising situation, they're pumping fear into you. And so I'm like, once they put a stent in your heart, that can't really get out, you know. And so they thought they knew what the problem was. Long story short, her husband was trying to convince her to get the thing. My phone is going to die. Her mother was trying to convince her to get the stent. She didn't get the stent. She said she's going to hold off. She kept going to different doctors. Come to find out, it was an abscess in her tooth from a root canal from many years ago. And you do know if you have teeth problems, it can affect your heart. So she finally got to the right dentist who saw what the problem was and was able to help her fix it. Imagine if she got the stent in her heart and it wasn't even what they said it was. That's how my grandmother ended up on diabetic medication from many, many years ago, because they gave her diabetes medicine when she didn't have diabetes. And now for as long as I have known her, okay, she has to take insulin every day. My point being, there's a level of practice in people's practice. And we have to be aware and cognizant of the choices that we make, because we're going to have to hold the fallout. Whichever way it goes, we're going to have to live with the choices that we have made, right? And so I just think that's important, because as we're hearing all of this conversation, people are not saying that. I'll come back and share this polio. I shared on my wall when they had the polio vaccine, I think it was, and this lady thought she was doing the right thing by taking the polio vaccine, X, Y, and Z, and then she ended up crippled, right? And now even though she was doing what other people were telling her, she's the one that's crippled. The man whose son took the jab I saw the other day, and his son died from enlarged heart. He has to hold that bag. He has to hurt. So whatever choice we make, we have to hold the bag. That's kind of what I wanted to say on that. So, yeah, they practicing. I don't know what they're practicing for, sis. I don't know what they're practicing for. They're practicing, though, because some things they don't know. Some things they don't know. So with that said, looks like the phone's about to die. Thank you for rocking with me. I pray everybody, is doing well. Be encouraged in this space and time. Sometimes we just need to bring it down into the reality, the here and now, what's happening, what's on people's minds, and acknowledge that, there's a lot of stuff happening right now. You know what I mean? If you can, get your water, get some food, purge out your diet. If you have not already, lighten your load. Lighten your load. Okay? If you have not already, this is not hype. Start to bring it on in a little bit. That's the best way I could put it. Bring it on in a little bit. You know what I mean? Educate yourself on some stuff that you may have always wanted to know how to do, because knowledge definitely is power in this space and time, right? And just prepare your mind. You know what I mean? Prepare your mind, prepare your heart, because a lot of times it's our heart and mind that sabotages. It's your heart and mind. You could prepare with physical things, but if you have not learned to govern your mind, or if you have not dealt with the relationships around you, it's those people that will cause stress. Relationships cause stress. Lack of communication problems cause stress. And stress has an effect with disease in the body, right? So the things that we can do now, let's try to make moves and do those things. And that's my thoughts for the day. It's all choices, Queen. It's all choices. And at the end of the day, like I tell my children, people can say what they want. At the end of the day, you gonna hold the bag. I'm gonna hold the bag for my choices. That person, you could be like, such told me, it don't matter. You did it. It's in your hand. It's in your hand. It's in my hand. Whatever's in my hand, that's my choice. You know. All right, everybody. I think I've had them to wait long enough. Oh wait, I said I was gonna show y'all one more thing. Y'all ready? I put this joint on myself too. Hold on. Wait. Go back inside. I'm gonna show the we got a new door, but I can't turn my phone around, so hold on. Oh, wait. Bam. Y'all see that? That's the new door. Oh, turn the phone around. That's the new door. That's that Yummy Cottage door. All right, y'all. Let me see. Yo, y'all should have seen me out here struggling trying to put that thing up. Yep. Don't let people pressure you, man. Don't let people pressure you. All right, everybody. Let me see here. Y'all ready? Look, watch this. Are you guys ready?
Yes, mommy.
Have y'all seen the Yummy Cottage lately? Whee! Y'all ready?
Yes, mommy.
All right. One. Let's go, guys.